Hello and welcome back to the jmsYOU mini-series of LJMU's 1823 podcast. My name's Lois, and in this episode we're discussing neurodiversity among students. I'm joined today by Jack, who is just about to start his PhD at LJMU. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Jack. Just tell us a bit about yourself and why you've come on here.
So my name's Jack Fitzpatrick. I'm 21 years old and I've had a diagnosis of autism and dyspraxia since the age of 3 years old. I feel that I want to be an advocate for people with neurodiverse conditions. I feel it's really important to raise awareness of this and to make sure that both students, staff and the public are understanding of what conditions encompass neurodiversity, as well as how important opportunities can arise from having neurodiverse people within your workforce, and also within organisations and society as well.
Brilliant. And you said that you were diagnosed at 3 years old. That's quite a young age, really. What were the first sort of signs that your parents noticed?
So my parents suspected something was wrong sooner, because I was struggling walking and talking, and just the developmental milestones that are usually there that are hit within the first 6, 18, 24 months, but my mum's a social worker, my dad's a police officer, so they have a great understanding of what disability looks like and kind of deal with it on a daily basis. In terms of this, what they noticed was actually when a health visitor came to do my checkups at a young age on to seeing how my development was. She noticed something was wrong and referred me to a community paediatrician, because I was constantly being sick because the milk was not agreeing with me that I was having when I was younger, and I just kept on being sick all the time. In terms of this as well, the diagnostic process was quite straightforward, really, because I was on reins until I was 4 or 5, because any time that I wasn't in that supported like harness type of thing, I would keep falling over. And when they did the analysis of my disability for my diagnostic assessment, I was -8 on the centiles. Usually it only goes to 0, so it was more severe than the scale rating for my coordination. So I couldn't sit upright on a chair. I used to flop over to the side. Things like that is really a struggle for me, and I've overcome it through many years of support and strategies. For instance, my coordination has been helped through a trainer that I've had for many years, who's helped me to get up off the floor properly, given me tone, given me muscle core exercises, and that has been really helpful as well.
That's really interesting. So did that support sort of begin as soon as you were diagnosed, and then it's carried on throughout your life?
Yeah, so that support started as soon as I was diagnosed. So it took a while to get the diagnosis. So I was 4 by the time that I got support in place. We had a bit of a struggle initially to find the right learning support assistant, but Lorraine Bradbury came along, who was absolutely fantastic with me. She helped me overcome all of my kind of challenges and barriers that were facing me to enable me to reach my full potential within school. It's not saying that it didn't come without its challenges. It's saying that she used things such as like touching her chin to improve my eye contact, to get me to look at the eyes and to maintain normal daily conversation. She also used things such as DORA and TP and Theorder Rescue and social use of stories to help me understand the world and process it around me, as well as helping me to read and write. Because originally my glasses, I had glasses when I was about 5 and I still wear them now, but it didn't have the special powers that my grandma's had, because when she put them on she could immediately read. I couldn't read at this point. So in terms of that, she helped me by overcoming my reluctancy and helping me to read and write as well. Because as you imagine, with the disabilities of autism and dyspraxia, there was a slight developmental delay. So in terms of that, she helped me overcome that and keep up with my peers. Another challenge was during school when I was at PE. She was not in the room, and a teacher, let's call her Mrs. G, said to me, because I couldn't do up my buttons ready for PE, she was calling me pathetic and calling me, Jack, we're all waiting for you, hurry up. And I was struggling, and I was really upset by that. It was by pure chance that another learning support assistant was passing, who saw this happen, went straight to the head, and the head then spoke with that particular teacher, gave her more opportunities for training and overcoming that type of behaviour and making more enabling environment for others coming through her class. So in terms of that, it's really important to see both the positives and the challenges that are there.
And do you think, with that experience that you had with that teacher, obviously you were sort of growing up in like the early to mid 2000s when you were at school. Do you think like the attitude towards children with autism and dyspraxia has changed since then over the past 20 years? Yes,
it massively has. I think there's become more of a evolution of understanding, as I'd say. More awareness is there for people because it's become more mainstream. Understanding of this condition has become part of, awareness schemes. So my degree was in education studies and inclusion. And also there's new initiatives such as the Neurodiversity Youth Council that have been created by the ADHD Foundation, which I'm working on, which are 16 young people between the ages of 16 and 24, in which we're working with them, and I'm one of the ambassadors to raise awareness of neurodiversity and create a paradigm shift really towards a more inclusive, more accessible and more universal environment so that more neurodiverse young people can thrive and reach their full potential as well. I think it's all about awareness raising and being open with people as well. And it's changed in the workplace as well. So more inclusion schemes such as Microsoft, Ernst Young, Willis Towers Watson, PwC, major companies are now taking and incorporating this type of approach to get people thinking outside the box. A really good case study and example is GCHQ, Government Communication Headquarters, also known as the Cybersecurity Centre, which have created and adapted their recruitment processes, as well as assistive technology in the workplace to allow neurodiverse people to thrive, because that is an environment that need to have thinkers that are very creative to move that forward and drive innovation and create solutions to some of the world's most challenging problems.
Do you think that, with all of these new groups and the councils and stuff like that you're a part of, do you think that all of this together is going to make a much more positive sort of experience for a lot of people who necessarily might not be open to talking about their experiences in the past?
Yeah, I fully agree. I think it's creating an area of psychological safety where people can have a space to talk about their experiences and to talk about the challenges and difficulties that they're facing on a daily basis.
Definitely, I really agree. So with all of your experiences of growing up and stuff, what sort of challenges do you face every day, and how have these challenges sort of followed you into uni?
Yeah, so great question. So in terms of that, the challenges that I faced have been in terms of getting public transport. That is a major challenge for me, and I have overcome that kind of challenge by using other means and methods, such as using taxis. So in terms of this, Disabled Students Allowance has provided me with a taxi allowance, so that has really been a lifeline for me to get to and from university. And I think the other challenges have been learning to read and write, coordination and sitting upright, being able to write essays and eloquently communicate the points that I need to, because that was a challenge when I was younger. But as I've matured and as I've got older, I think some of those challenges have been overcome. But still, public transport is one of my biggest anxieties.
And you mentioned about the disabled student allowance. How did you go about getting that?
I was reading that a staggering number of students don't know about this, so I wanted to come on to this podcast and also talk about it and raise awareness, because the prime audience for this is students. So in terms of this, for those that are listening who have got additional needs and need a bit more help and support in university, as I was transitioning into university, my educational healthcare plan, which came in the Children and Families Act 2014, ceases when you come into higher education. And therefore, I was wondering and floundering really, and feeling a little bit lost of what support would be in place. Just by a pure chance conversation with my special educational needs coordinator at my college, he said, "Oh, there's a pot of funding available for students with disabilities. Have a look at it." So whilst I was going through the process of student finance for my undergraduate degree and also applying for it again for my PhD, they have offered me a great package of support which has helped me to thrive in university. So they've provided me with a taxi allowance, as I just said. They've provided me with a laptop. They've provided me with assistive technology. They provided me with a mental health mentor when things got difficult, when deadlines are approaching. They also provided me with an academic mentor, and they also provided, the university through their disability department produced an independent student learning plan, an individual student learning plan, ISLP. This is a document which goes to all of your lecturers to create the level of support that you need in that environment. So your lecturers read it as well and understand what reasonable adjustments you need. So that's been great. I've not encountered any problems with this, and I feel that more students should really apply for it.
Definitely, I agree. I think, you coming on here and letting people know about this support's available is like really important, because like you say, not a lot of people know about that at all, and there is a lot of money that can be given to help students like yourself and things. So yeah, definitely, I think anyone who even if someone isn't sure whether they could be applicable for it, it's always worth asking, isn't it?
Absolutely. And if you need any more information, please contact the disability team, who will provide you with some more info on that.
Were you given any other support at uni, or was that sort of like the main thing that you received?
That was the main thing that I received, but my lecturers absolutely understood me and really had open conversations with me on what do I need. For instance, this is not my situation, but there was a girl who had dyslexia in my year, and she needed it on yellow paper. So they printed it out on yellow paper for her, and just that small adjustment allowed her to understand and digest that information in handouts.
That's really good. And what advice, now you're a PhD, about to be a PhD student, what advice would you give to someone who's coming to uni or is already in uni, who's similar to you?
So the advice that I give is make sure that you seek out the support as early as possible, whether that's to be diagnosed at uni or whether that's to seek out existing support on top of that. Because if anything, the level of support that I've had has been above and beyond some of the support that I've had previously, which is amazing. And it provided another layer and support, a layer of support altogether. In terms of this, what I'd say also is make sure that you get the information and ask for it in advance so that you can process the information. And also make sure that you ask for the right reasonable adjustments that are suited to you.
And do you think that there's still a stigma towards autistic students today?
I think that stigma is still significantly there, but it is getting better. I think that the support and the level of awareness is now becoming more mainstream. But I do think that still some people experience that on a daily basis, because there needs to be quite a shift really to become more inclusive, more patient and understanding. There has been a lot of movement recently, particularly around the Sunflower Lanyard, which was developed by Heathrow and Gatwick Airport in 2017. From this, This has become an international initiative which is supported by some of the world's biggest companies such as O2, Virgin Media, Virgin itself as a wider company, and it's in every airport around the UK, and it's also supported by LJMU, in which there's posters around the Student Life building to say if you need support, please wear the sunflower lanyard, and more support will be given. So I think there is more of a shift towards this coming better, but there's still a long way to go.
I agree. And do you think are you hopeful that it is going to continue to progress?
Yes, I think with the appointment of equality, diversity and inclusion teams and senior leadership positions such as Director of Diversity and Inclusion within organisations, particularly in the private sector more, but it's becoming more and more popular in the public sector as well. I think it's becoming more mainstream, and there needs to be more, conversation and buzz generated about it.
Definitely, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think there needs to be, more talk about it, because if more people talk about it, the more notice it's going to get. And that's really important.
Yeah.
And for you personally, now you're doing your PhD, what are you looking forward to in your future? I'd love to hear more about what you're doing with your PhD as well.
So my PhD is Modern Policing in the 21st Century, Time for Inclusive Cultural Shift. As we've seen in the press very recently, the media spotlight has been firmly on policing and on wanting to, there's been a call for change. Already I've had some great successes through this by being published by the Home Affairs Select Committee, which I wrote evidence to them as part of their policing priorities call for evidence. And it got published last week. In terms of that, on the 1st and 2nd of February, I've also had a trip down to London where I met with the MOD, had the opportunity to stand on the step at 10 Downing Street for a photo, and also I've established a link with the Metropolitan Police as well. But what these opportunities have given me has been to build my understanding and experience of policing, because even though my father comes from a policing background, I didn't understand what the rank structure was or how to communicate with each of the levels. But from this, I've created an organisational outline to understand and process who I need to speak to, and created a flow chart of all the key people that I need to speak to. My PhD is also supported by John Moores through the VC's scholarship scheme, in which I was lucky enough to win a scholarship. And also it's being supported in terms of resources and access to buildings and personnel through Merseyside Police, in which they're the predominant partner in my PhD as well. I'm planning to look at the systems and processes of the organisation, and I've already spoken with quite a few officers and staff who are neurodiverse themselves, and the understanding and feeling is that the organisation is starting to change, but hopefully this project and the study of my PhD will create meaningful change and create recommendations which going forward will push the culture and push the organisation even further to become more inclusive. Inclusion already is a priority of the Chief Constable, but in terms of this, there was still more work to be done on that.
Well, thank you so much for coming on here, Jack. And I think what you're doing is so important to raise an awareness for this. Like, it's such an important issue. And the best of luck in your PhD as well. I hope you do brilliantly, which I'm sure you will.
Thank you very much. Thank you.